What's going on, guys? In this video tutorial, I will be showing you how to divide polynomials using long division. More specifically, we're going to be going over an example where we are going to have to pay attention to how the dividend and the divisor are set up so that we get the correct answer. So let's dive right to it. Okay, so when you're dividing polynomials using long division, the first thing that I like to do is I like to identify my dividend and my divisor, because that will tell me how to set up my equation or my expression. So if you look at the first polynomials, 7x cubed plus x squared plus x, this is going to be my dividend. This is going to be my dividend, okay? The dividend is going to be the expression that will be going inside the division bracket. The next thing I'm going to identify is my divisor. This is going to be my divisor, okay? So now that I have that set up, I know my dividend goes inside my division bracket and my divisor goes outside of my division bracket. The next thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that your expressions are in standard form and they have all the required terms, meaning that your exponents are in descending order. So if you look at the dividend, you have 7x to the third, then you have x to the second, and then you have x to the first, but you're missing the integer, or x to the 0 power, which we don't usually call it that way, but you are missing a term in this expression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dividend before I even write them into my division brackets. I'm going to take my dividend, I'm going to rewrite it as 7x to the third plus x to the second plus x, and then I'm going to add the 0, okay? So here you'll notice that we have x to the third, x to the second, we have x to the first, and then x to the 0 power, or just our integer. Okay, I'm going to then go ahead and look into my divisor, and you'll notice that the divisor is also missing a term. It's missing the x to the first power. So what we're going to do is we're also going to include a placeholder. So I'm going to rewrite my divisor as x to the second plus 0x plus 1. So this here is going to be our placeholder for our divisor, and this 0 is going to be our placeholder for our dividend. So now that we've rewritten our expressions, we can now then jump into writing our polynomials in the division form. So I'm going to take my polynomial, my first one, my dividend. I'm going to write it inside my division bracket. So 7x to the third plus, plus x to the second plus x plus 0. And for the purpose of instruction, I like to put a number 1 in front of the variables that don't have numbers, just so that it reminds me that even though there's no number in front of the variables, there is one, and that's what we call the phantom 1. So I'm going to write a 1 here, and I'm also going to write a 1 here, okay? I'm going to then write this inside my division bracket. And now I can write my divisor on the outside of my division bracket. So I'm going to write x squared plus 0x plus 1. And again, I'm going to include the number 1 in front of the variables that don't have a number for the purpose of instruction. All right, now that I've written my division expression, I've got my dividend inside my division bracket, and I have my divisor on the outside, I can go through the process of determining what I need to multiply with my divisor to get my dividend. So you always want to start with the first term of your divisor and the first term of your dividend. And you want to ask yourself, what do I need to multiply x squared by to get 7x to the third power? And we know from the rules of exponents that whenever you have variables with powers that are the same variables, they're being multiplied, you're going to add the exponents. So I have x to the second, and I want to make sure that this becomes x to the third. So what I'm going to do in this case, I know that if I multiply this x to the second power with x to the first power, or just x, that is going to give me x to the third. And watch where I'm going to write this, the first part. I'm going to write the x just above the column of the polynomial, our dividend, where the x variable is. So we're trying to match the variables according to their power. So this is x to the first. And also, what do I need to multiply 1 by to get 7? And we know that that is going to be 7. Okay? All right. So now that I have my first factor, I am then going to take this factor and I'm going to multiply it with each part of my divisor. So I'm gonna go and take 7x times 1x squared. That is going to give me, it's gonna give me 7x to the third power. I'm gonna take 7x times 0x, which is then going to give me 0x to the second. And then I'm going to take 7x and multiply it with 1, which is going to give me 7x. So once you get to this point, the next thing that you want to do is you want to then subtract. You want to subtract this entire expression that you got from multiplying that factor with each part of our divisor, okay? And you want to then distribute this negative to each term. So what I like to do is I like to demonstrate that by putting, I'm going to erase these parentheses and I'm going to give myself a little bit of space so I can show you what I'm trying to do here. Okay. So I'm going to take this negative and I'm going to show the distribution of operation by putting whatever resulting symbol from multiplying that negative on the side here. So if I take negative times positive 7, that's going to make this negative. If I take negative times a positive, that's going to give me negative. If I take a negative times a positive, that's also going to give me a negative. And the reason that I'm showing this operation is because a lot of students get lost in this. They forget to distribute the negative. Now notice, here I have 7x to the third minus 7x to the third. So that is going to be very helpful because then I can cancel this out. Okay? I'm going to then move on to my next part. I have positive 1x squared minus 0x squared, which is going to give me positive 1x squared. Okay? And then I'm going to take positive 1x and I'm going to subtract 7x, which is then going to give me negative 6x. Okay? So I get to this point and the next part is then to take the term that is left inside of the division bracket, and I'm going to bring this term down. And I'm going to write it as plus 0. Okay? After that, I'm going to go back to my divisor and I'm going to compare and ask myself, okay, what do I need to multiply my divisor by to get 1x squared? Well, you'll notice that it's already 1x squared. So really all you have to do is just multiply by positive 1. Because anything multiplied by 1 is itself. And we go through that process of multiplying our factor with each term of our divisor. So I have 1 times 1x squared, which is going to give me 1x squared. I'm going to then multiply this 1 with 0x, which is going to give me 0x. I'm going to then multiply this 1 again with this 1, which is going to give me plus 1. And again, you want to make sure you're subtracting. So I'm going to put parentheses because I know that I have to distribute this negative to each term inside of the polynomial I just got. So if I take this negative, actually, let me give myself another bit of space here so I can write this. If I take this negative and I multiply it with the positive 1x squared, that's going to give me negative 1x squared. If I take this negative and multiply it with positive 0x, that's also going to give me negative. If I take this negative and I multiply it with positive 1, it is also going to give me a negative. So now I can subtract without having to worry about, I missed a term or I missed a symbol or something. So I have 1x squared minus 1x squared. Well, that cancels out. I have negative 6x minus 0x, which is just going to give me negative 6x. I then have plus 0 minus 1, which is going to then give me negative 1. And you'll notice that when you get to this point, I cannot find another term that when I multiply it with 1x squared, it's going to give me negative 6x. So this is what we call our remainder. When we're dividing polynomials is we take our remainder and we're going to write our divisor below it, kind of like a fraction, and I'll show you what I mean. So I have my quotient, which is 7x plus 1. I'm going to have to write my remainder up on top because I have to make sure I include that. And let me show you how that's going to be written. So I'm going to include it as plus parentheses. Let me expand this a little bit further. Negative 6x minus 1 over 1x squared plus 0x plus 1. All right, so there you have it. This is our quotient or our factor. And you can also write it, you can remove the missing term because, or the placeholder, because if you guys remember, that was just so that we can go through the process of dividing. So you can leave it this way, or if you want to simplify it further, you can write it like this. Let me show you what I mean. So you can write this as 7x plus 1 plus parentheses negative 6x minus 1 over x squared plus 1. And you'll notice that I took off the phantom 1 because I put the phantom 1 in the front for instructional purposes to show you that that has a value of 1. So hopefully you guys found this video tutorial helpful. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.